Hello, movie patient, and welcome to Film Therapy. I am Brienne, also known as Miss Movies, also known as your film therapist. I'm not a real therapist, but I play one on the internet just for this show. And as with every show, I have a patient, and my patient today is Emma Fyffe. Hello, Emma
Hi.
Fyffe.
Well, I'm getting my
Oh,
microphone cord caught up here. Yep. All
it's
right.
all
We
right.
got it. We
It's
did
all
it.
right.
We're good. We're
We
good.
made it.
We're good. We made it.
Thank you for coming on this show today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We did a little switcheroo because we did 6 degrees right before this.
Yes.
Then I switched out the background.
Yep.
And
Yep.
got rid of Stacy because she's not allowed on this. No, she's only
Yeah.
allowed as a patient because you
I
can only have
see.
one
I see.
doctor
Yep.
on the show.
Yep. Yep.
So there you go. Hello, Jeffrey Von Gerp.
In the chat.
Thank you for
Hello.
joining us for 6 degrees and for this. And
Yes.
it's evening, I believe, for him. So
Oh, okay.
good evening to
Excellent.
you, Jeffrey.
Fabulous.
So Emma, before we get started, this is how
Yes.
this show works.
Okay.
I have a guest patient. I ask 3 questions. What is a film that inspires you? What is a film that helps you through difficult times? And what is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, perhaps it's happy.
Mhm.
So I'm going to ask you those 3 questions. But before I do that,
Mhm.
I want those that are in the waiting room, such as Jeffrey, or elsewhere that are watching this on a rerun, to
Mhm.
know who you are, what you're all about, all that good stuff.
Well, I am Emma Fyffe. I am I like to think of myself as what the Brits would term a broadcaster, which is
Nice.
sort of an all-encompassing term for host.
Mhm.
Be it, I mean, I've never actually done anything on the radio at all, but be it
Right.
radio or particularly, sort of in the internet space that we live in now, primarily podcasts and also internet
Mhm.
shows. And I'm known for being me, not for acting. I'm known
Right.
for liking stuff
Mhm.
and talking about the stuff I like on the internet to an audience. So I do a bunch of stuff at AfterBuzz TV. I'm currently on the Star Wars Rebels after show, as well as the Bob's Burgers after show, and the Yuri on Ice after show, which I was instrumental in making happen. You can also see me on stuff over at Schmozno and Collider. I am a guest host with some regularity on the Schmoes live show and also conduct interviews for the movie Trivia Schmodown post game.
Yes.
And I'm doing a show on Hyper RPG entitled Pencils and Parsecs, which is a live stream of a Star Wars tabletop RPG. The system is called Edge of the Empire from Fantasy Flight. So we're just starting that up. We just did our character creation session last Friday, and the real game starts this Friday at 9. So I'm really
Nice.
excited.
9 p.m. PST. That is Twitch.
PST, twitch.com/hyper.tv
Twitch.tv/hyper
hyper
RPG.
RPG. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. They have a great studio over there. It's an up and coming Twitch channel.
Yeah.
Check it out. Follow it. Twitch is really like becoming a place
It
to
is.
be.
Yeah. I mean, the platform was invented specifically for streaming video games, but more and more we're kind of delving into the what Twitch terms creative content.
Right.
And it's fun. And I think that, doing sort of tabletop games is kind of a nice medium in between like streaming video games and streaming
Right.
kind of like talk shows.
I like it, and I hope to be over there. I was over there this past week.
Yeah.
I played Overcooked.
I have
So
not
much
played
fun.
that.
It's really hard when you can split a controller and play with a partner. So
Gotcha.
they have one half of the controller, you have the other half. That's super hard. We
Yeah.
did terrible. We got 0 stars for our tips, but it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And that's the point.
Nice.
Having
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, having fun.
So I was like, how do I move this person around? What is happening? And then now I have it. My kids have started playing it.
Yes.
And I'm just as good as they are.
Nice.
So there you go. All right, so let's get into our questions
Okay.
today. We're going to start with our first question, which is, what is a film that inspires you?
Well, I know I just talked about it on
It's okay.
6 Degrees, but Legally Blonde to me is a very inspirational film.
Yes.
Because again, and we talked about it on 6 Degrees too, that like so much of it is about portraying. It's sort of embracing yet defying stereotypes
Mhm.
because she is a sorority girl and she is blonde and she is very bubbly and she does like to shop, but like there's so
Yes.
much more to Elle Woods than the surface. You
Yes,
know what I
and she
mean?
discovers that too, which I like.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a discovery story for herself.
It is. It is. And I love anything that the catalyst is, um I thought that my life was totally dependent on this man, and then,
Mhm.
sort of by going down that journey of following Warner to law school, she discovers, no, wait, I don't need him at all.
Right.
Especially when she gets Callahan's internship.
Mhm.
And she like comes up to him and she's like, oh, this is gonna be like senior year but funner. It's just gonna be so much better.
Mhm.
And in the musical, she actually does sing a song so much better. So in the musical, I know I keep going back to it, but it's so good, you guys. And I can't talk about the movie without also talking about the show.
They should make the musical like
A
into a
film, oh my
film. Why
god, it
not?
would be amazing. So basically, in that moment in the musical, so Warner and Vivian are not actually engaged at the beginning of the musical.
Okay.
Basically, they both get the internship, and Warner's like, baby, I want to marry you, and Elle is like, oh, my life is over. And then she looks on the list and she's like, wait a second, no, it isn't. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Is like, I'm
Aw.
gonna probably have a great career in law because I got this really difficult internship.
Mhm.
And the other part about it too is that sort of message of like girls sticking together and supporting one another. Like, I love that, the relationship, it shifts from being like, okay, so you've got Vivian, and Elle is always kind of like jealous of her, but she's never actually malicious towards her. Vivian's
Right.
the one who's a little malicious towards Elle when she's like,
That's
it's a
true.
costume party, but it's
Mhm.
not. And I love that their relationship evolves where they're like, oh, here are all the like dumb things that we've discovered about Warner being in a relationship with him. Like, he
Mhm.
can't even do his own laundry. And then they kind of realize, like, oh, wait, actually, the two of us have a stronger connection than either of us actually has to
Have with
Warner.
him. Right.
Yeah. So I love anything that is
Mhm.
about like women sticking together and supporting one another. Like, even though these are two women who are very, very sort of surface level, fundamentally different from one another, in the end, like, they're both girls and they gotta look out for each other. And
Right.
that's I think certainly a really nice message for what kind of carries over into the kind of internet space, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of sort of malicious people out there
That's
who
true.
particularly attack ladies on the internet. So I really like
Yes.
sort of carrying that message over to be like,
Mhm.
nah, like, ladies on the internet got to support each other. Like, we
Exactly.
shouldn't see ourselves as being in competition with one another. And I think that, even though, yes, obviously, like, Elle is disappointed when she discovers the existence of Vivian in the first place,
Mhm.
because she like
Feels
wants to, yeah, she feels
replaced.
replaced.
Mhm.
Exactly. She never like attacks Vivian really, or is
Right, because it's
or
not Vivian's
no, it's
fault.
that's the thing, is it's not Vivian's fault. And she sort of recognizes that. And it's like, does she like dress in a sexy bunny costume and then try to make the most of it by like getting all up on Warner and trying to win him back? Yeah. But like, it's not like she's trying to like knock Vivian down.
Right.
So yeah.
That's true. It's interesting because I feel like when I was younger, I was much more competitive with people my age and
Yeah.
and now as I get older, like there's definitely people out there that are doing things that I would love to do. I would kill to
Sure,
do. And I'm
sure.
like at a different time in my life, I would have been very jealous of that person and probably like
Yeah.
said mean things about them just
Mhm.
because like
Mhm.
I had something in myself that wasn't right. But
Right.
now I'm like super support. I'm like I want those people to succeed and I want
Yeah.
these women to do well.
Well, because it's like, like I can't, I'm gonna get the idiom wrong. It's something about like, ships rise together or something like that. That,
Right?
you know what I
I don't
mean?
know the idiom,
Okay,
but I know
but
what you're
yeah, but
talking about.
anyway, yeah. So yeah, that basically it's like you want to support one another and sort of form a support system, and all like, you know, come up through the ranks together. And
Exactly.
if you have that, I have found that to be incredibly true in kind of getting involved in this whole internet space, is that I have made friends with people, and then they're like, rising tides lift all boats. Thank you,
Thank you, Langley.
Langley. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this idiom wrong. Which
ducks fly together, the mighty ducks. Eric,
yes,
yes, they do.
Uh,
I also want to quickly do a little side note and say
Okay.
thank you to Ben, who's the intern for this show,
Yes.
for 6 degrees. But if I ever record film therapy after, which we're doing,
Yes.
then he's also gets to be the intern for this show. And he brought me some water because I was coughing. So thank you, Ben.
A plus. A plus.
And you might see him in the chat.
Engineering.
So he's there. He's engineering. We're gonna
Yes.
call him Ben the engineer.
Yeah. The Bengineer.
BTI would be Bengineer. I like it. That's your new name. That's your new name, Bengineer.
Yeah.
Oh man, sorry to go on that
No,
tangent.
but yeah. So I
yes.
mean, basically, what I was saying is that it's like, I have found that, being nice to people and supporting people, like that's so
Mhm.
much more rewarding than trying to
It
take people
is.
down, and like
And then they support you too.
Yeah,
and
like-
it's so great. That's the best part.
just
when,
be
people
happy for
support
other
you.
people when they succeed. Like, even if they get the thing that you wanted, it's like you still, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to put into words, and on top of that, it's like uh um it is, I agree with you, Brian, that like it's something that you have to get older to like
Mhm.
really learn.
Right.
Because I agree, like when I was younger, I would get so I determined pretty early on in my life the difference between envy and jealousy. And that like envy is not necessarily a bad thing. Envy is a, man, I would so love if something like that would also happen to me.
Right.
That's okay. And just because you feel envy doesn't mean you can't also be supportive of the person you are envious of.
Right.
Jealousy is bad. Jealousy is,
Mhm.
I'm specifically jealous of that thing that that person wants and I want it.
Right.
And I kind of, again, like figured out early on how to sort of differentiate between the two, and like just embrace the envy side, and like
Mhm.
slowly kind of push that out and be like, it's okay to have that initial reaction, and then you just you want to lift people up.
Right.
Yeah.
So lift people up,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I'm
That's-
sure everyone in our chat is a lifter upper.
Yes,
I bet
absolutely.
you they are.
Oh, 100%.
100.
Yep.
Let's go to our second question.
Okay.
What is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, perhaps it's happy.
Okay. This is super bizarre.
Okay.
But for me, it is, and it's specifically in regards to where I was in my life at the time watching this film in a theater. So we were very lucky in Little Bethel, Connecticut, where I grew up, population approximately 18,000. Yeah, which, to put it in perspective, like Universal Studios, the theme park that I work at, like we had attendance days that were like in the 40,000s. So like it would, like, my town was smaller than park attendance. But we had an art cinema. We had a little Bethel cinema. They had tiny little screens, and we would get all the like weird little movies that you wouldn't necessarily get big
That's pretty
theatrical
cool.
releases of. Now these films get a lot more attention, but at the time, like Hayao Miyazaki's films would they'd get distributed by Disney in the US, but they wouldn't necessarily be at like your Lowe's or your Sony, whatever your big Cineplex was. But I remember going to see Howl's Moving Castle, which is loosely based on the book Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. And there's this scene in the end of the movie. So the whole sort of plot of the film is that the wizard Howl doesn't have a heart. He like traded his heart to a fire demon to keep the heart alive, to keep the fire demon alive. So he has no heart. And in the end of the movie, the Witch of the Waste, who's just this crazy like
spoilers
lady,
potentially.
Yeah, spoilers potentially. Like she like gets his heart from Calcifer, the fire demon, and it's about his sort of relationship with this girl Sophie, who gets cursed and turned into an old lady. And like Sophie has no confidence in herself at the beginning of the film, but like once she's an old lady and she like doesn't care that she's like kind of plain and not as like pretty and exciting as the other girls, she's like, well, I don't care. Like she develops into this like very sassy, like no nonsense personality. She's great. And in the end, and it's a love story between she and Howl, and ultimately it's like the love between them that is able to like heal him and make him back to being a full person. And in the end of the movie, the Witch of the Waste still has his heart, and she says to her, like, please give me Howell's heart. And the witch says to her, you really want it that badly? And she says yes. And then, she like gives him his heart back. And at the time that I saw it, like, I have like basically the absolute worst taste in men in existence. Um, and
How old were you though?
I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's
Yeah.
respectable.
I was 18. And I was like madly in love with this guy who I uh, was in college with. I was home on a like winter break or something. And I just remember, and the thing is, it's like at the beginning of the movie, like Hal is like sort of a piece of shit.
Yes.
Like he's known for being like a womanizer. He has this reputation for like stealing women's hearts. And so then to see this character who has this terrible reputation end up, turning into this character who really understands love and
It's like
falls.
Beauty and the
It
Beast in
is
a way.
little Beauty and the Beast, and I love Beauty and the
Yeah, I
Beast.
know,
Like
me too.
that's the problem. I blame Disney films for me being like, this guy has this awful reputation, but obviously
Oh, he's gonna turn.
I'm gonna be
at
the
some
exception.
point.
But yeah,
I will soften his heart.
Yes, exactly. So I just remember being like absolutely wrecked, being like, yes, she does want his heart that badly, like because it's that sort of like metaphor for like, obviously like she was physically being handed his heart, but but really what it was her being like, yeah, I do, I want his heart to be mine and for us to be in love. And I mean, it worked out great for her. That's not normally how it works out, for the record. But yeah, no, I remember like that was just so emotional for me at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So what happened with this boy?
Oh, it was awful. It was terrible. Yeah. He ended up, I like went back to school early one time. I had to be back early because I worked in catering when I was in school, and I like couldn't get into my dorm until like the day that I needed to be there, and I had an early morning meeting. And so I was like, I need like some place to stay just like the night before. And like he lived off campus and was like, oh, you can totally just come stay with me. And at this point we'd had so much back and forth of like, we were very flirty with each other, and like we would cuddle and watch movies and things, but like nothing ever actually went down. But I mean, I went back early, and I remember going into it being like, I am not gonna let this be the way it has been. And I did not. So we hooked up, and I was, obviously super happy because this was something I'd been wanting for so long. And then he just kind of like was sort of distant after that. And I just remember being like confronting him about it, and him being like, well, I don't know, like it was fun or whatever. And I was like, I've been like super cool and not like pushing you about this because all I wanted was for this to maybe happen again. Like I didn't even want a relationship, I don't think. I feel like everyone who I've ever sort of like had feelings for in my life, I've been able to identify that like those feelings are mostly sexual. Like I don't really know these people well enough to truly feel anything.
That infatuation.
Yeah, it's that infatuation. And I totally recognize that. And I'm like, I just want, because I don't fall infatuated. I don't end up being infatuated with people very easily. Like I don't find that many people that interesting. Which
I mean, in LA.
I mean, that's like a weird thing to say, but like, I just remember feeling like I ended up getting so emotionally involved in this in a way that like was not my intention at all. You know what I mean? Where like you go into something and you're like, no, this is literally only about sex. And then like, because it didn't happen again, that's when I got emotionally involved.
Right.
And then he ended up dating one of my friends. Oh, it was awful.
Oh no.
It was horrible. It was horrible. But, and now this kind of circles back to Legally Blonde, wherein he was dating one of my friends, and literally like the morning after I found out about it and was so upset, she reached out to me and was like, can we please get together? And I was like, And I didn't even for a moment hesitate. I wasn't like, no, I hate her. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And we
Yeah.
had like a great conversation where it was like, I don't, like obviously, like it sucks because I had feelings for him, but
Right.
like it's not your fault. Like
Right.
you didn't like go steal him from me or something. He wasn't interested in me. Like
Oh man, I got a story. So, going off of those similar
yeah.
lines, when I was at SC and I was in the sorority, there was a girl that was would go to a few different things with this guy, and and he had told me like I'm not really that interested in her. Like
Right, right.
she's not someone that I want to date.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I would ask her out on dates.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and he's like, and I've gone with her to an event once before, and that's about it. Like,
Right, right.
otherwise, I'd ask her to go to other things that
Right.
are outside of school.
Right.
Anyways, so later, I end up dating him, and she like her the entire she lived in a six-way is what you call it
Okay.
in the sorority house because
Okay.
there's six people in one room. So she was in a six-way, I was in a three-way up on a different level.
Right.
So she figures out that I'm going out with this guy. And
Okay.
like
Okay.
all of a sudden, like that entire group of girls stopped talking to me. Like I still haven't talked to
Oh
them. And I'm
no.
married to this man. So see, it ended up working out
Oh,
for me.
I know,
And
but
I was like, I tried to talk to her plenty of times because again, it's not like I was trying to take anything away from her because it's not like
right.
we were good friends or anything,
Right.
but I liked him,
Yeah.
and I was like, "I'm not gonna not go out with him. He wants to go out with
Yeah.
me."
I think though that there is like that kind of just sort of illustrates all the stuff that like Elwoods is not about, which is like freezing girls out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But like
it
you
sucks.
don't want to be friends with women like
Mhm.
that.
That's
And
true.
it's like a hard lesson to learn. And unfortunately for them, like it is something that is taught to them by society that like women
Right.
are constantly in competition with each other. And like it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I remember at like another college party, like there was this cute guy there and like one of my friends was flirting with him and then like I ended up like being his beer pong partner or something and then
Uh-huh.
like the other girls who he had come with like came and like attacked me. They were like, how dare you, like he was for her. And I was like, I what, he's not
Yeah,
her
it's so
boyfriend, like
weird. It is so weird how things work, especially in college,
yeah,
because that's another like growing stage of life
yes.
where you're learning how to be out and about without your parents,
Yeah,
without going home to your parents and things like that.
yeah,
So, oh man,
yep. So yeah,
college, good
it was a time.
fun. Good fun. That is another reason, like, why I decided to deactivate from my sorority. I deactivated my senior year
Mhm.
because I was like, well, first of all, I'm not here that much because
Yeah.
I was doing song leading at the time. And like, when you do that, you're
Mm.
like gone.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not active and involved in the sorority. I
Yeah.
don't want to go to the meetings.
Yeah.
I was like, and these girls won't talk to me. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, guess I'll just
I guess I'll
leave.
just go. Yeah, I was always doing like 6 shows a semester in
Hmm.
college, so I had time for basically nothing
You're a
else.
theater major?
I was, yeah, musical
Nice.
theater. Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
I was
Mm.
also a theater major.
Hey.
What? That's why we're on mic right now and
Exactly.
camera. All right, let's get into our final question, which is what is a film that helps you through difficult times?
It is usually anytime I'm having a rough time, my go-to film is Clueless.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love it. I love it.
I am so up until about a couple weeks before I was born, my name was going to be Heather, because
Hmm.
Heather is sort of like the national sort of like Heather like grows in the fields in Scotland. So
Okay.
Scotland, it's like thistles and heather. My parents really wanted to name me Fiona, but they thought Fiona Fyffe would
Mm.
be too much.
That's cute though.
And then my mom reread. My mom's a big Jane Austen fan, and I am too. And so she reread the Jane Austen novel Emma, and so I am named after Emma
Aw.
Woodhouse.
How cool is that?
And Clueless is a modern adaptation of
Of
Emma, and
Emma.
it is a brilliant modern
Mhm.
adaptation of Emma. especially like I loved it so much from the time I was about 10 years old, and living in LA, I just love it even more.
Right, because
Ugh,
it is all LA, and
it
I'm
is.
sure you go by the Circus Liquor
Oh yeah,
place
I live
all
right
the
by there. Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
Everyone
Yeah,
knows the Circus
yeah, that
Liquor
liquor store
place.
that Cher gets robbed at, I live less than a mile from there. It's a great liquor store, by the way. They have a fantastic beer selection. Um, but so for me, because I see so many similarities between myself and the character of Emma, or in this case, Cher,
Share.
where basically like everything she does with the best of intentions. And
Mhm.
then because of all of her sort of meddling in people's lives and thinking she knows what's best for people, she ends up like her life ends up being sort of a dumpster fire. And then, she kind of realizes, oh, wait, I've actually been acting kind of selfishly, I
Was doing things for
even though I was
others.
doing things for other
Mhm.
people. And like she kind of turns around and starts being selfless, and realizes she's in love with her ex stepbrother, and it all
Yeah.
works out for her. And
Which is kind of weird, but at the same time, like, they weren't
they
married
weren't me, yeah,
that
exactly. I mean,
long.
okay,
They're not blood
so in the
related.
novel of Emma, he's actually her
Mhm.
brother-in-law. Her sister,
Okay.
yes, her sister Isabel is married to Mr. Knightley's younger brother John. And so like, and they were supposed to have like grown up near each other, so they've known each other their whole lives. And
Okay.
like, the thing about both the character of Josh and Mr. Knightley, and with Sharon Emma, is that they match each other on like an intelligent, witty level, because she's very, very smart.
Mhm.
And in Clueless, it's like she's not book smart, but she's very clever. She argues her way to better
Mhm.
grades. Like she's got a lot of
Yes,
she
she
knows
could be the
people.
lawyer too.
Yeah,
She could go
she'd be a
on
great lawyer.
because her dad is a
Her dad is a
lawyer,
lawyer.
a
Um,
litigator.
yes, he is, which is the scariest kind of lawyer.
Gets
Even
paid to
Lucy,
argue
our
with people, but he'll argue with me for free.
because I'm his daughter. I can literally quote the whole movie. But yeah, so again, I think it's because I often have moments in my life where I feel like I am acting very selfishly, even though like I think I did everything with the best of intentions. Like
Mhm.
I remember like getting into an argument with a friend one time wherein we'd been like gossiping about people we worked with or something like that. And there was this whole scandal of like, oh, is this, driver who seems to be sort of romantically interested in and like flirting with some of the girls, is he married? And like, it was sort of like a conversation that carried
Mm.
around. And then my friend who'd initially I'd had the conversation with about it got like so mad at me. And I was like, I thought I was just like trying to help out this girl that he was maybe interested in if he was
Yeah.
married. It turns out he was not married, by the way. I don't know how this rumor got started, but it just sort of and I feel like I have moments like this frequently where it's like I was just trying to help, or like I'll look
Mhm.
at my life and be like, I'm only doing things for me, and I'm a terrible person. And I think that Cher and also Emma do have that moment where they're like, I am an awful human being. And then it kind of causes them to look at their lives and go, you know what?
Mhm.
I'm not an awful human being, but I have been doing things for the wrong reason.
Right.
And now I'm going to turn it around and fix it. So I feel like that's
And she
just,
does.
yeah. And I feel like that's an emotion that I just experience a lot of the time,
Mhm.
where I feel like I'm a horrible person. Like I just, I'm terrible.
I love Clueless. I love all the like LA
It's so
spots.
good.
I'm thinking of like right now when she's like, I love him, and like the
I
fountain
know,
turns
the fountain.
on.
Yeah, she's like walking
Ooh.
around. She's okay, so she's supposed to live in Beverly Hills, but that house was actually in Encino.
Of course,
Um,
it's always how it is.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then the
You're
house
like, I go there. I drive
I've
by
drive I've driven by it before.
it.
The house that they go to the party at was for sale a couple of years
I
ago.
saw that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was in like Woodland Hills or something.
Okay. Okay.
The liquor store, when she says
Yes.
she is in Sun Valley, she is not in Sun Valley. It's
She's like
very different.
Burbank slash North
Yep,
Hollywood.
she's Burbank adjacent in North Hollywood, very close to the AfterBuzz Studios.
Mhm.
And but yeah, it's so fun to see all the different like LA places they go, and the way that they talk about like directions of getting
Yes.
from one place to
I was
another.
thinking about it the other day because like I was driving my mother-in-law, we carpooled to the Huntington Museum, and then my mother-in-law was like, "Oh, you can just drop me off." And then and then you can go back home. And I
Right.
was just thinking of Clueless, like, I'm gonna have to get off the freeway.
Yeah, I
I
hate
hate
that.
doing that.
Yeah. I went to a party in Sun Valley one time and went through my head being like, would she have been why would they have been driving by Circus Liquors? And I was like, okay, well, if they were taking Burbank all the way across to Coldwater to take Coldwater over to get back to Beverly Hills, they
Yeah,
could
they
potentially
would.
be driving down Burbank Boulevard if they'd like come down the 5 and exited in Burbank. And it was like I like literally was trying to
Mhm,
justify why they
mhm.
were at Circus Liquors.
Very good. I
Yeah.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
But yeah, so I love that movie. And again, it kind of is like it's another great sort of like message that there's a lot more to people than sort of that surface level.
Right. I also am sad about
I
Brittany Murphy, Eric.
know. Ugh.
I miss her a lot. I feel like we would have seen her
Oh, and
do a lot
she
of
was
great
great in
things.
this movie. There's
Hmm.
another movie that she's in that I love
8 Mile,
to watch when I'm sad. Nope.
Little Black Book,
Nope. The Ramen Girl.
Just Married. The Ramen Girl, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh my God, it's so good. Basically, she follows her boyfriend to Japan. Her boyfriend's
Okay.
like working for some company in Japan. She did not speak a word of Japanese. She
Hmm.
gets like a super lame job at an office where she has to like correct English translation. So they'll like give her something that says happy birthday and there's like 6 eyes in birthday and she just like crosses them out. And then like so she becomes friends with sort of like all the other expats living in Tokyo.
Hmm.
And her boyfriend ends up being like, cool, you're here, great, I'm going to Shanghai for like 6 months, but you got to stay. And she's like, awesome. So like her whole life is terrible and there's like this awful rainstorm and she's trying to get home, but she gets caught in the rain and she can't, and she's starving, and she ends up in this ramen shop with this like super like surly angry little Japanese man who makes ramen,
Hmm.
and she ends up learning to make ramen. Like it, and it's
Huh.
like this wonder because like making ramen is like this whole process where you like cook the broth for hours to like develop the flavor. And so yeah, she like basically learns that she has this real passion because that's the
Hmm.
problem is like she's just following her boyfriend. She has no sort of passion of her
Right.
own, and she kind of discovers that like she's really kind of like she struggles with it and she has a hard time, but like she perseveres and she learns, and she ends up like dating this like super cute Japanese boy, and then he has to go away, but like oh, it's
Everyone's
so good,
leaving her.
it's so good.
Everyone's leaving the
Yeah.
Ramen Girl.
Yes, The Ramen Girl is a
Uh,
great movie.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out. Thank you so much for being on this
Yeah,
episode of
thanks for
or
having
this
me. This is
session of
great.
film therapy. Where can the other patients that are in the waiting room find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at my name, Emma Fyffe, EMMAFYFFE. You can also find me on a bunch of shows at AfterBuzz TV. I'm currently doing the Star Wars Rebels after show at 8 o'clock p.m. on Sunday nights. That is Pacific time, followed by the Bob's Burgers after show at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time Sundays. And on Mondays, we have a couple more episodes left of the Yuri on Ice after show. That is 7 o'clock p.m. on Mondays. Again, all Pacific time. I also do a Sailor Moon podcast called Love and Justice, a serious Sailor Moon podcast. We release new episodes on Tuesdays. You can find us in the iTunes store at Love and Justice. If you look it up, you'll find us. You can also just search Sailor Moon in the podcast section of the iTunes store and we will come up. We're also at loveandjusticepod.podbean.com is the site that we hosted at. And Podbean has a great app for streaming
Oh, nice.
podcasts if you are not an iTunes user. So it's a really nice, friendly user interface. And then you can also find me on Hyper RPG every Friday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific. That is twitch.tv/hyperrpg, playing a Star Wars RPG. The name of the show is Pencils and Parsecs, which the chat came up with, which is super fun.
Is that an easy game? Like, could a novice person come and play?
Yeah, I think so. It's
Like a guest?
yeah,
Like
I
a
mean,
woman named Miss Movies could come on and play
I
sometime.
mean, yeah, it's so
All right.
it's a real so the Fantasy Flights system for Edge of the Empire, which is the game that we're playing,
Mhm.
is super fun because unlike Dungeons and Dragons where you use all the different dice, this basically there's only a few different kinds of die. There is basically sort of like good things dice that represent like your skill level in something versus how difficult it is.
Mm.
And like there's different symbols representing success and failures, and then other symbols representing like advantage and disadvantage. So
Mhm.
it's really fun because you basically weigh them against each other. So sometimes like you'll succeed. So you'll succeed at whatever you were trying to do, but you
Yes.
succeed with a disadvantage. So it's
Huh.
like I hack that guy's arm off with a lightsaber, but I fall off the platform and am now dangling from it, trying not to fall off and die.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
it really lends for a lot of great storytelling on the part of the players and not just putting everything in the hands of the game master.
Cool.
So yeah, it's
I
pretty cool.
like
I'm
it.
very
I'm gonna
excited
check it
about it.
out.
Yeah.
You should check it out too.
Yeah.
And you can check me out on Twitter at Miss Movies or on Instagram/Snapchat Miss_movies. So that's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll see you on the next session of Film Therapy, which is tomorrow with Nick Scarpino from Kinda Funny.
Awesome.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.